What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you'll consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Showtime series Yellowjackets, and more specifically, the evolution of my previously professed pit girl theory. And just so you guys know, this video will contain some mild spoilers, so if you haven't gotten around to watching this show yet and you don't want to know anything that happens in it, you might want to exit this video now. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. So, for those of you who have watched my recent Yellowjacket videos, you may remember that I stated that I thought that Mari was pit girl, mostly due to the rising resentment and even physical violence that took place in the first episode of this season between Mari and Shauna, and the fact that it caused Mari to leave the group, resulting in her actually being caught in the infamous pit that was originally discovered by the now late Coach Scott, a theory that I turned out I was right about, at the end of said episode. I thought that with the girls' second winter in the wilderness still to come, that maybe the group might once again be short on food and that Mari might draw the dreaded Queen of Hearts card and choose to run instead of submit, ultimately falling into the punji trap. Now, I thought this because we have yet to see adult Mari in the present timeline, which leads one to ponder the idea that she might not have survived the wilderness. Though I guess there's still some time for adult Mari to make an appearance, even though, to my understanding, there's only one more season of this show to go after this one. I also thought this before we were surprised by the plot twist this season, that being the appearance of Edwin and Hannah, the frog scientists, and their guide Cody at the end of the episode entitled Thanksgiving Canada. I believe that being episode 6. Now, since that plot twist, we've seen the death of Edwin at the hands of Lottie in the episode that followed, and then Shauna ultimately demanding that the group stay in the wilderness after Cody offered to show them the way to rescue. And with that, I now think that Hannah is pit girl. And I think this theory is more likely to be true than not at this particular juncture. Now, I think this because given the circumstances, that being that both Hannah and Cody know the group's secret, that being that they're cannibals, that it's highly unlikely that any of the scientists or, the remaining scientists and guide, so to speak, survived their run-in with the soccer team from hell, right? I actually think that's why Shauna demanded that the group stay instead of leaving with Cody. I think she does this because she wants to be able to ensure that their secret will be kept. And I think she knows that if they all leave with Cody and with Hannah, that their secret is likely to come out, especially since Edwin was killed at their hands, right? I think that would have been the only thing left that might have made them, the scientists go, okay, we won't tell anybody. But once Edwin was killed, all bets were off in that situation, right? We already know that Hannah doesn't survive the wilderness because we've seen her obituary in the present timeline. And it turns out that her daughter, who's now an adult in the present timeline, is married to adult Melissa. Another previous theory that turns out I was right about. But who's keeping score? And I think that the girls probably killed Cody at some point, maybe before winter for the hell of it, right? Or maybe not until winter once food gets scarce again. And then Hannah will be the girl's final human sacrifice, likely sometime next season. Given what we've seen to this point, if I was in the writer's room, that's how I would do it, right? Sometime next season. She likely elects to run rather than submit and falls into the deadly trap as a result. Now, I think the writers here manipulated us, the audience, just past the point that I think is kind of inbounds as screenwriting goes, right? I think it's fine to keep the audience guessing about a particular plot point in your story, right? But I think this particular plot point was leaned on too heavily, right? You guys remember that the Pit Girl sequence was the very first thing we saw in the cold open of the pilot episode of this show some 3.5 years ago at this point. So the fact that we still haven't seen the scene come full circle and gotten the answers that the scene basically presented to us, I think is tantamount to screenwriter malpractice, if you ask me. Especially when you consider the lengths that the writers have gone to offer up Mari as the alternative victim, right? You've got the fighting with Shauna in the early episodes of this season. She literally leaves the camp and gets caught in the trap, in the pit, by Coach Scott. I think that was a bit too on the nose and too much, especially since the animus between Shauna and Mari has all but disappeared since the first couple of episodes, right? So I asked myself, what was the point? The point was, simply put, to throw us, the audience, off the trail. I think the writers could have simply used the plot twist to their advantage here, that being the arrival of the frog scientist. That was really all that was needed, right? The violence between Shauna and Mari was unnecessary. Mari leaving the group was unnecessary. Mari getting stuck in the pit, also unnecessary, because once Hannah and Edwin and Cody show up, that would have been enough to be like, oh crap, maybe the pit girl isn't Mari, right? That would have been more than enough. Now, I say all that to say that Yellowjackets has been both a breath of fresh air and extremely frustrating all at the same time, in that the show's premise had such potential. But we've seen much of it squandered through storytelling blunders and bad writing, like the ill-advised cold open for one. Given what this story is actually about, I still don't see the point in the writers starting with Pit Girl. They could have simply started with the state championship soccer game and we could have built up to Pit Girl next season in the final stretch. I think it would have still produced the oh shit moment that the writers were looking for. And it would have come as a complete shock and surprise, as opposed to people watching the show now for 3.5 years waiting to find out who Pit Girl is. I think the writers also spent too much time in the present, in past seasons especially, like their goal was to stretch out the events of the wilderness so that they could use them to keep us, the audience, actively engaged. Likely because they knew that the present timeline alone would not be sufficient. This show is finally getting to the good part in the past timeline, that being the Pit Girl climax and what I can assume will be the girl's rescue, again, sometime next season. Because as I've told you guys, they're not getting rescued until the final season, and probably not until late in the final season, right? I can also admit that the present timeline is picking up quite a bit, even though I still contend that I care much less about the present than I do the past here. And I think it's just a shame that the writers have decided to take the scenic route to the answers to the questions that we, the audience, really care about, which I believe has resulted in a lot of filler. But what do you guys think? Are you all caught up on Yellowjackets? If you are, what have been your thoughts about the Pit Girl of it all and how we got to this point? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you that might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. You can also now support the channel by leaving a super thanks. If you should be so inclined, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, be sure to go and check out themadScreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write. And I'll catch y'all on the next video.